Hi, everyone. So I'm Francesca Melluzzi. I'm a somatic coach and trauma and mental health practitioner and lifelong yoga teacher. And I'm here with a really great client, Tim Grier. And we decided to have this as a conversation and to share it because one of the reasons for me is really about inspiring people and especially men to seek out support and coaching, especially around with when being either diagnosed or undiagnosed with ADHD or autism. So Tim, can you just introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself briefly and what brought you to coaching somatic, specifically somatic coaching.
Yeah, lovely. Well, hello everyone. Tim Grier. I am 63. Was diagnosed with ADHD and autism late 50s. Not so long ago. Other members of my family had diagnoses earlier on, and it took me a long time to realize that their traits were very similar to those that I had. I consider myself to be a very successful business person, continuing on with that. And I've always had executive coaching through my career. I've been fortunate to have that. But now meeting Francesca, the relevance of the subject matter is becoming massively important. That I've got an opportunity here to talk to specifics around how I feel and how I've always felt. So delighted that we have our conversations now. It's helping me immensely.
And what were the things, if we go back to our kind of first session, what were the things that you were struggling with on an emotional and physical level that brought you to somatic coaching specifically?
Well, at my stage in life, I've given up the corporate career and now pursuing my own business, consultancy, coaching, training, mentoring, non-exec directorships. And in that's become unstructured. That's become a world where I will shape outcomes as opposed to the corporate machine driving my focus, and for me to be developing me more than developing the teams that I have or the companies that I have. It's still very, very important, even at early 60s. So to not neglect me as a person for however many 20, 30, 40, whatever it is I've got left, it is very important. I'm a firm believer in everybody needing to develop, and my background has been not really to accept much in the way of success, but focus on the things that haven't perhaps been achieved or haven't been done, that continuous improvement drive that I've always had in business. Every now and again, I realize I've got to do that with myself. So these opportunities to have discussions like this are for the betterment of me, and also to come to terms with maybe how I've been over my life and how I was as a boss, as a manager, as a father, as a son, as a husband, as a friend. The continuing voyage of discovery that I'm really enjoying.
I guess for people listening, I think it would be really helpful to share to be really specific about some of the things that you were struggling with, because I know you mentioned that you'd had executive coaching, and the difference, what's been the difference that you noticed in the somatic coaching compared to the executive coaching that you had, and how has that specifically helped you on a mental and emotional level?
Well, the focus is very much about me. The focus is about how I feel inside in my body, physically, as well as mentally, drawing the positive energies out and allowing myself to disregard, discount, forgive the negative issues that sometimes get in the way. The black clouds that can come across every now and again can be seen as a limiting factor. This methodology and style is allowing me to reach into some of the areas of my past that were always successful, but focus on the positives rather than things that were holding me back.
And there was a very specific moment that we had on our second session.
With it, it's wonderful.
Are you happy to talk about that? Are you happy to share that and what happened and what changed for you?
Yeah. Very early on in our getting to know each other, we had a conversation about something that I'd carried with me for a long time. And it was an opportunity to talk about the other person's perspective, the person that was creating the blockage, the issue that was creating the blockage, and put myself in their shoe and to move to a different chair. We moved to a different chair, physically and mentally, and wore the other party's shoes, if you like, and viewed things from their perspective. And we discussed what their life was and could have been like, and the pressures that they went through. And that really made me feel humble and a little apologetic for me placing the burden of my issues squarely on their shoulders without recognizing that they would have had similar issues. We are incredibly similar. And to understand that if I was going through these feelings, chances are they were as well, and one didn't lead to the other, but one was affecting the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So to explain to people who are listening, what we did was we did some work based on IFS. So it's internal family systems. So we were really looking at internal parts, younger parts of you. We explored that. And we also did some chair work where we got you to sit in a chair and to experience with compassion what the other person might be going through and their journey. And it was really a journey of, so there's four main things that we work with in my specific methodology. We work with self-acceptance, authenticity, self-compassion, and self-responsibility. And so we went quite early on, we went quite quickly into, because you were really open to that. We went into the self-responsibility piece, because what we discussed is how one can spend years and years and years analyzing, but really it's about getting into the body and coming out of the head, dropping out of the head and being in the body and being able to feel and experience and allow that to process rather than continually analyzing.
Yeah.
Then can you tell everyone, so I think it was either the third or the fourth time. Can you remember what you said to me? I asked you, so this was after we'd done this session. So within the session, you were very emotional. I hope you are okay with me sharing that. You were very emotional. It was a big release for you.
Yes.
And you shared with me in one of the last sessions that we had, and I asked you how you'd been doing after the session. Let me know if I've got this right or not. You said something like, I feel like I've got the energy back that I had when I was in my 30s, and I realized I was carrying something around inside of me that was rotting, and if I'd continued, it would have continued rotting. And it was about alleviating that shame through compassion, through self-compassion, and then compassion towards the other. Would you be happy to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah, I can remember. Yeah, it was an excellent session where I felt so much weight lifted off my shoulders, so much freedom, the freedom to look ahead and, 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 and be myself and be what I wanted to be, um, rather than being held back, other than feeling bitter over the circumstances, always seeking some form of affirmation, the constant reassurance that probably is, never going to come. And it's not needed because I had a much greater understanding of the other party's feelings and situations. And I was able to let it go. I was able to physically grow a couple of inches, head up, shoulders up, felt warm inside and able to go out there and get back to being me. And it may be, that this is a situation that many people go through when they neurodivergent or otherwise, when they go through a change in life, like retirement from a corporate career into doing something else, because I'll never retire. I'll just do other things. I don't believe this retirement stop. This retirement is now enabling me to go and do many, many other things, still around work, but also health and social and family and experiences as well. And sometimes in the work environment, there are issues to be solved. There are problems to overcome. There are people to guide and lead. When it's just oneself working in front of a computer screen and doing different things, then the focus absolutely becomes about the individual, and fight or flight or denial comes in very, very quickly. And times like this, you have the opportunity to have 17 cups of tea or coffee, one after another, because it's all avoidance. But understanding why those feelings are coming through, and understanding that it really is unhealthy to burden with issues of the past that weren't of anybody's making other than circumstances. It's so uplifting.
Beautiful, uplifting. I like that. And that's how I would have described you. That's so much more uplifted and so much lighter in your energy compared to when we started. It's not it's important to say that it's not just a one-time fix. It's a daily practice. It's a daily practice. And what I really love now, what I'm doing more and more these days, is I'm working with people more and more in leadership, so that I can work with people who are holding space for others, so that they can feel held and supported, and then they can support others, which is what you're doing. Is you're leading teams and you're supporting businesses in Oxfordshire.
That's what I've always done all the way through my career. Every position I've had, I've been in positions of leadership since the cops.
I like what you said. Sorry, Tim, but you said about, I wanted to say that it feels really important to share that, it's so, that self-responsibility piece is so key to healing, and because as humans, it can feel more convenient that we don't, unless we're taught otherwise, that emotional education piece, it can feel so much more convenient and easier to distract ourselves, like you said, all the cups of teas, or the just constantly blaming and not going forward. And I really admire your courage. So I admire anyone who has the courage to look, and then to have the courage to stay and continue walking and continuing to look and to engage. You're very much engaged with the whole process, and that's what I have the utmost respect and admiration to you for that. And tell people who are listening, after that session where we had that breakthrough and you were very emotional, it was a big release. It was very, very, it was a real privilege to hold that space and witness that. And it stayed with me. It was very, very beautiful. Tell me, or tell people who are listening, how did that positively impact your life afterwards? So, for example, with your wife, with your children, with people that you were interacting with, because something I want to mention that you didn't, I don't remember you saying at the beginning of our chat, was that one of the ways that I remember you were really, because of your diagnosis, right? But you didn't know you were diagnosed, was that it was the work addiction, the overworking, so the manifestation of this event, that this situation, was that in constantly looking for that validation externally, overworking, addicted to work, and then going into burnout. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, was when we get to the root and we recognize, oh, that's the driver. Oh, I don't need to. It takes a bit of time for that to integrate as well, because if you think you've spent all those years doing that same thing, that's why it's so important that we say it's a daily practice. It's a daily, I'm doing like a wave. Tell people who are listening, how was it after that session? What were the positive impacts of recognizing, oh, that was the driver for my, overworking, overachieving? Because there's so many people that, for example, either in the corporate world or in academia, and, believing I need to get more degrees, more PhDs, I need to achieve, and then get into that burnout, whether or not they identify as being neurodivergent or not. Talk a bit more about the positive impact, the flip side of that. What's the opposite of going into overachieving to get your sense of I belong in the world, for example?
I would say it's concentrating on the things that I enjoy doing, that I get that desire for fulfillment and some form of acceptance. Yeah, it's one of the easiest, for me, people say to me, I couldn't do your job because it's so stressful. The easiest thing for me to do was to do that job that was stressful, because it didn't mean I had to focus on me. It's much easier running a multi-million-pound organization than it is running me. When it comes back to just me as an individual with very happy family, 4 grown-up children, things are good, pretty good. But the self-doubt would come in all the time. What if I just focused a little bit more on something else? The way I feel now is it's all about me, but I don't feel selfish about that. It's about how I manifest myself to other people, but also how I get enjoyment out of everything I do, or don't do it. And don't need to wallow in the past and in related to issues that didn't quite go well. 99% of things can go well, and 1% that goes wrong, that's the demons. That's did that thing wrong. But it's enabling to not be thinking about those things, to be thinking about positives that I've got, the attributes I've got, the strength, the inner strength I've got, and just the pleasure of being with the family, with my friends, with my colleagues, with my mates, and trying to get positive out of everything, and just not thinking about the negatives, because far from perfect, nobody's perfect. And it just also helped me to be so introspectively beating oneself up.
That's the big key. That's, for me, has been my personal, and the biggest key that helps everyone is really learning to stop the self-attack. And the antidote to that, the self-compassion piece. And it's teachable, and it's and you can learn it at any age. That's what I hope, I trust that people will take from this. That this, we've only been working with each other for a short amount of time, and in a very short amount of time, we went. You were able to have a big breakthrough very quickly.
Very early on, you were able to say to me the language that I was using to describe myself. I was very hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's an attribute that comes with neurodivergence, that the words I was using to describe, I was trying to be describing how good I was in myself and who I consider myself to be. But you pointed out that was hard language and being tough on myself. And I've looked at people doing that, and I try and coach them out of it. Looking in the mirror, thinking, we all have a massive amount of value and self-worth and lots to give to other people. So focus on that. That you really helped me by listening to what I said and just retuning that, just moving it up an octave. Was wonderful.
And I think the last thing that would be great to share would be, I suppose, if there's anyone out there who's, I was speaking to a friend of my friend's husband the other day, and he said to me, and he's quite open-minded, but I was surprised. He said that he wouldn't, I think our conversation opened up the possibility of coaching and mentoring. But before that, he said he wouldn't have really sought it out, What would you say to someone who's got a block, who thinks that, who has a negative idea about, or just doesn't feel like coaching or support is for them, but they could really do with it? And whether they're neurodivergent or not, someone who's struggling, someone who is always on the self-attack, maybe someone who's lacking purpose, what would you say to them?
Well, some would say that we only get one shot at this, that this is the life we've got to live. And if we view ourselves as a Ferrari, then we should be looking after ourselves as we would an exquisite sports car, if that's your thing. And you wouldn't take the sports car to a backstreet garage and say, put some WD-40 on it, it'll be fine. It's got to be tuned. It's got to be appreciated, and it's got to be worked upon. Some of my heroes look at sports people, musicians, that practice 40 years to have 30 minutes of success. It isn't easy being a human being. And so we should invest in ourselves, and talking about this with somebody that I believe we very quickly formed a trusting relationship with each other. And if we hadn't, we wouldn't continue. But I got you got me. The conversation goes off in a different place, but we've all seemed comfortable with that. It's most important to be talking about, to doing the diagnostics on oneself. Is really what we have. Neglect this and this, and how can we achieve what we meant to achieve, or help other people, or whatever we're here for. So we are special individuals, everybody, and we should consider ourselves as such. I put so much more effort into my work and my 2,000 colleagues than most of the time I did about myself. So coaching isn't counselling. It's not being sent to detention. It's not remedial. It's not, you're not on the naughty step. It's realizing the potential that's deep under the skin, or just under the skin. And it's so much better to talk than just sit back and just do on things. So I would recommend this. And I had people when I was younger that helped me in business. Now I'm helping similar people in business, because there's no replacement for experience. AI cannot give you the experience that a human being and a human brain, sometimes called common sense. So talking and sharing it already now in this conversation, I feel so much better than when I started the conversation. You're working your magic again.
Beautiful, thank you. I think that's what I was saying to people is, mentoring is really, no, I don't believe it's anyone's job. Or this idea of fixing, I don't believe anyone needs fixing. I say this in the first discovery call. It's really about being a mirror, mirroring back to you. And then if there are some blind spots, maybe sharing those, maybe suggesting, making some suggestions. So having someone to help you as well, to guide you, because it's a big missing piece in education, is the emotional education. It's coming back into the body and befriending ourselves, and
I-
and
I-
learning practical tools. It's very practical tools to learn how to, for example, your thing and most humans' thing, self-attack. What's the antidote to that? Okay, and then here's a step-by-step way. Okay, start changing the outward language. And then that translates into the internal language, and then that translates in how to relate to others, So it's practical. And yeah, thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your story, because I'm sure that there will be people that I can think of, I can think of people that would love to listen to this interview, and it will inspire them. So thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, so thank you, everyone. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I'm going to say goodbye now.